Hey there, everyone. It is Jim Gardner from Leap Zone Strategies, and welcome. This is the first of uh, a series of conversations, quite frankly, for you, the viewer, and for just to add some positivity to the stream of consciousness that is ever expanding around us in this day and time. And so I personally invite you to reconnect inward conversations in courage. And today I am joined by one of my dear friends, one of my dear colleagues, peers, Tina Overbury. Hey Tina, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for asking. And just for everyone watching, yes, I do have a dog. That is
I
a
know
bark that you hear. That's a tail walking by. So just
he's,
we're all good. It's handled.
it's a shadow.
It's a shadow.
He's ghosting us. So Tina is on Bowen Island, which is a small little island off of the city of Vancouver, right? Paradise.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. As far as isolation goes, being isolated in paradise is, not to minimize the isolation we're in, but it's not so bad. It's not a bad. I kind of choose to live that way anyway, It's
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm living on Vancouver Island, which is obviously a huge island, and it's still an island.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some element of shelter and being kind of somewhat secluded. I'm in a small town here, so but we can't, no matter where we are, we can't hide from what's in front of us. And so before we kind of dive into just some spitball and conversation, why don't we introduce yourself, Tina, and to our viewers, to people that may be in my circle that aren't familiar with you and your genius. So take it away, Tio.
Cool. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. Thanks for starting this conversation. It's a really important time, I think,
Yeah.
for listening. And that's what I do. I'm a story coach. And when I say that, people really go, oh, that's interesting. I kind of get it. But if I actually tell you what I do, you might go, oh, that's a bit weird. And it's not weird, but I'm a professional listener. That's what I do. And I work with people who feel called with a communication of some kind, be it a book they're writing, a keynote that is the shape that it wants to take. Some people actually don't even know the shape of the communication that they're here to give the world what it's supposed to take, and that's part of the job too. But people come to me when they're feeling like, I think I might be crazy, but I really feel like I need to say this, or I've been, this thought has been keeping me up all night for 3 months. What do I do with it?
Mhm.
And so it's like I'm a collector, and sometimes I call it story keeping, where I work with people to help them keep the story that's been entrusted to them, and then support the structures for that communication to live in.
Mm.
Um, and not all of us are made to write a book. Not all of us are made to keynote, but we're all made to relate and to communicate. And so my job is to listen to each communicator as like the instrument of who they are, and help them align with, how does that want to live in the world? Like in really basic language, help them write their book, write their keynote, create their blog. But it's so much more than that.
So we were talking about this a while ago, and so you take the someday conversation,
Mm,
the someday I will, someday I want,
yeah,
and you take that someday and turn that into now.
yeah.
I think I mean that's why we're here right now having this conversation. I think
Mm-hmm.
right now more than ever, everyone has the chance to stop, to look inward, and to say, okay, what are those some days that I've been toying around with and discussing, and how can I make that now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And from come on out in the skinny branches with me, if you will, on in story language. What I say to people is that like stories are like toddlers. You know, they will chase you around. They'll like tug on your sleeve. They'll throw themselves at your feet if they have to. They just want a good listening to. And so this piece about someday, like stories are just waiting for us, whatever you can call it, purpose, you could call it your mission, you can whatever. They're just waiting for us to say someday starts now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we shake hands with that, say, okay, that impulse, that whatever, that mission, that call to us, we're like, okay, I'm in. Like we have the time. Like this is our someday right now. That's where we went last night, which I really, really appreciated that conversation of like, is there even such thing as someday? Like really?
Really, right? And so let's break that down, because I know, I know that people in my community, people that we're all kind of cut of the same cloth, and we many of us recognize, and some don't yet, but recognize that, okay, the one thing that we have, ironically, that we have more of right now is time. and time and time ultimately is the unrenewable resource in the world. It is a constant. It's 24/7, right? 7 days a week, right? 365 days a year. And so we have more time. And so how can we inspire others to engage in that inward conversation? Okay, what is my someday, and what is now? And let's kind of see what we can to break open that courage, that rock of courage, to kind of stimulate this thought pattern amongst people that are watching this.
I think it's one of the things I appreciate about your work in the world is the way you know how to break down now, like pull it apart into pieces so that we're present right now doing something that leads us to the thing we've been somedaying about.
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
it is like you're very skilled in that time piece, and not just the management of time, but the maximizing of our potential in that time in bite-sized pieces, that whole strategy piece that you do so well.
yeah. It is incrementalism at its finest. It's whether I'm helping somebody build a business or helping somebody check off a bucket list item. It's the same methodology. It's the same principle. It's breaking things down into incremental steps of growth. And I find that time is that one constant that can be played on the macro and micro level. And I think that's why too, in high performance sport, time is part of that. It's volume of training. It's periodization of training on the larger scale, and time is the cornerstone of everything, and of many things, right? And so we have more time now. So what would be a catalyst for people on this, Tina, that to start that journey? Because I think this is where you come in, is what is the story that we want to create for ourselves? Because ultimately, if it's a dream, if it's a goal, if it's writing a book, if it's running a marathon, we're creating that story in our head of what that may look like first, right? And so maybe you can shed some light on that.
I think you nailed it already. So just to geek out with me a little bit, like what I do is when I'm listening to people, like it's almost like their words will shimmer, they'll like come up to the surface. And what you just said, as time is the cornerstone. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's the message. That's actually the answer of the catalyst of this time. So it's like really asking the question, what is the cornerstone? What is, for those of us who really center into, like some of us feel peaceful externally. Some of us feel peaceful internally. Like my writing partner, she works from the outside in, and that's how her stuff comes. For me, I work from the inside out. So it doesn't really matter. Neither one is better. but it's sitting with the question of what's my cornerstone? What's going to be my cornerstone of this time? And so you might be someone who works on the inside out like me, and the answer comes from within, and you might have to be quiet or get quiet or write or whatever it is that connects you there.
Right.
Or you might be someone who works from the outside in, and you have to think, what do I want out of this time? But what's the cornerstone that you want to hook into, anchor into as the catalyst? And then we go to your brilliance, which is, how does that play out?
Interesting. Yeah.
Are you an external processor or an internal processor?
Internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely work nucleus out. Much, and that's why I use a lot of acting analogies in the work that I do, because it is about, well, and you've been there yourself, that it is about creating a character from the inside out, and adding those layers and layers and layers until it becomes a reality. And we always say, be clear on what you want, the how will surface, right? And I think even for anyone that's at a point now where they're willing to take that step. So we always talk about, and you, for those that know me, talk about stepping into the arena and kind of that warrior mindset that I have. This is the time where I think a lot of people realize that they do have time. They have time. Okay, what do I do? And I think, I know some people that have reached out are they're hesitating or paralyzed because they don't really know. And first I want to say, that's fine. You don't have to know. What you have to know is you have to have the courage to take that first step to say, I need to know something. What is that story? What do I want? And that may, some people out there, it happens quickly. And some people have to kind of really peel back the layers to figure out what it is that they want to move forward on.
But that's, so what's cool there is you just gave us the how, which is courage, right? So it's like, and again, as a story person, I process the world and communication through who, what, when, where, why, and how. And so the what of this question, what do we do at this time, was Cornerstone. And then the how is courage.
I like that. This is what I love about this, right? We're just having conversations. We're hopefully inspiring other people and giving them some insights, and we're educating each other. Like, we're up leveling. And this is, gang, people that are listening to this is what this time is about.
Yeah.
Right. It is about conversation. It's about connection with your family and people that are close. It's keeping that sense of community alive. And above all, this is your given time to elevate yourselves. I think we have a duty. I honestly believe in my heart that we each have a duty to multiply our impact, to figure out what is our impact, what is our potential, and step into that. Now's the time. So
wow,
I love that.
I was just going to ask you, and you just answered it, which is, what do you think this time is about? Because we're all talking about it, right? Or we're all thinking about it. We're all having conversations around the topic, but not really in it. But what I heard you say is understand, or getting to know your potential and impact, like in this time. Is that what did I hear that right?
Absolutely. That is what I feel wholeheartedly right now is our duty as human beings, is to, we have a duty to each other on a humanity aspect. And I feel right now, though, given some of the limitations that are put around us based on current events, then our duty is to ourselves, and to figure out, everyone, I feel, should come out of this more evolved. Wow. And really, whatever that means to people, and that it needs to happen. I believe that wholeheartedly. If people If people come out of this and don't change themselves at all in whatever way and move the needle forward, it's sad. It saddens me. And this isn't about financial means. This isn't about race, status, position in societies. This is horizontally an even playing field, and everyone should grow from this experience.
Wow. Horizontally an even playing field for all of us, yeah, to grow. The other thing you said that really like struck me was when you said our limitations, and I went, oh my God, that's his arena. Like we're like the limitation of, you know, stuck in our homes, or all these rules we can and can't do, and the social isolation, or the like that. We either accept that we're in that arena and take on the I'm going to call it the gifted warrior, because it doesn't have to always be about fighting, but it's like the whole warrior of this time, and maximize the potential to take us to whatever the next evolution of our being and of the world might be.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, for me, I feel called now. So my impact is to step on a bigger stage. My impact is to step into a bigger arena, right? And we were talking, right? And now the landscape has changed. So now every day I'm stepping foot into the Coliseum. I'm not stepping foot into this other arena. It's like the stakes are bigger. The crowd, people that need to hear what we have to say, what people around us and what we're about, they need that. The crowd, if you will.
Yeah, totally.
Right? The mob, as they would say back in those days, they need us now more than ever. And there's a lot of noise out there. And you could argue that there's a lot of noise out there more than ever. And a lot of it's great. Yeah. And a lot of it is not so great. And and ultimately it is the loud voices that that make a mark and resonate, and people need to hear the good. People need to hear the positive. We and you know, this goes back to Stoicism, Tina, right? We can't change.
Yeah.
You know, many things are out of our control. And you know, what can we do with, again, going back to time, what can we do with the time that is presented to us? That is our gift.
Yeah.
And that is our help me out, wordsmith. What's the word I'm looking for?
No, you're in this one. What is
yeah, that's our duty to honor that time. You know what I mean? Like, it's a gift, and we need to respect that gift and utilize that gift.
Okay, that, to me, that's the word. You got to respect that gift, right? Respect that gift. And I tend to go to honor. That's one. And you said honor too. Like, when we honor something, we honor the wholeness of it, right? It's not just the pretty things that we want to take away. Well, this one's easy. I'm going to take this. I get to stay home and eat chocolates, and okay, I'm being ridiculous, but we're going to run out of chocolates at some point. But, you know, I get to stay home and watch Netflix, and yes, we do. Like, I do actually think that the first stage of this, so sidebar, what I think this time is about, for me anyway, is prepare. For me personally, as someone who's on my own life's purpose, where you said, you know, move into a bigger arena. I think for me personally, this time is about readying for the big arena that's coming.
Interesting.
And having the tools to offer the people I'm here to serve, whose work I'm here to support, to ready them for the next arena where the ground rules are different. So in that, I think these first 7 days for all of us are a little bit about, you know, like shedding anything we've been carrying, just like the old, whatever, the old paradigm, the old heaviness, the old systems, routines, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, like do the Netflix, you know, do the mac and cheese, like do whatever you're doing for 7 to 10 days. And then eventually you're like, oh, I'm empty. I like, get to the bottom of your to-do list. You know, what happens when we get to the bottom of our to-do list? Fucking anything. Like anything can happen now that we're at the bottom of our to-do list. And so when I say honor or respect, you know, once we've let go of the old, we sit in the space of potential, and then we honor this time of what am I called to do in this time? And there's actually space to hear what, or feel, or just know what we've always known in this time.
I love it. What are we called to do?
Yeah. Or be, because I think that's, you know, just give me a little bit of a soapbox for a sec. I think we're really skilled at being. I really do. And if we're not skilled at it, we've read all the books. Being, breathing, breathing, quiet, still, meditate. Awesome. Right. Cool. We needed that. We're also really skilled at unconscious doing. Right? Do. That's why we wrote all the books on being, right? Reaction. And what I think is wicked about this time that we're in is there's only so much time we could spend being. We're going to have to do something, but we get to do as we be. And I'm like, whoa, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to have a goal or have a fierce drive to create or produce, but we're quiet inside? I don't know. But I think that's where our potential is sustainable, where we can live up to our potential or fulfill our potential as a physical being. We live in a body, like, you know, we do. Time matters. We live in a body, but like live up to our potential sustainably is being as doing. But I don't know. I can't say I know how to do it. And I think that's what I'm working on preparing.
Well, I mean, you do know what you're doing. I mean, right now, look at us. I mean, you could actively say we are being present and we are doing what we feel we are called to be doing.
Yeah.
So we are being, and that dance is kind of happening as we speak, on the micro level, and you know, as when we finish this conversation, you know, you're going to go back to your respective work, and I have a full roster of clients after this, which is what I'm called to do. And I think so. It might be easier for us than perhaps some people that let's break down, like, let's shed a light on someone that perhaps is starting from ground zero. Right? You know, what are, you know, we always in coaching, we always want to lead them to the very next step, right? So creating some catalyst for momentum, and you know, the small needle movers, the habitual small habits make up the big victory, right? So what can we do? Like, let's break this down for someone that is home, that has gone through their week of Kraft dinner, macaroni and cheese, freaking bag of chips, Netflix, because those, you know, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody that's watching this, right? I mean, I do my binge watching at night. I only end up being usually about 45 minutes before I'm out every night. But I mean, I just finished Vikings, and I feel like my world is crumbling because I don't know what to watch now. And it's the truth. I'm like, oh, I just spent 2.5 months invested in this, and now I'm caught up. It's like, ooh, right? But so for anybody that's gone through that, now they're like, okay, I need to start focusing on me. What's the first step?
Well, I'll volley it back to you. I'm curious to see how we both answer this question.
Sure.
But I'll start. I know for me, what I would recommend to a client is I would say, pay attention to where your head goes when you're doing boring things. When you're doing the dishes, when you're in the shower, when you're so you're doing stuff, what do you hear in your head, and start to notice what you keep hearing. And I'm not talking about when we're in pain or anxiety. I'm not talking about that.
I got you.
It's actually the messages we hear when we're so present in doing something boring that we can hear what's in our head. And so my first thing is notice. Start to notice and start to respect what you notice, and track what is always the same. Write it down. If you're write it down, actually write it down, whether you're a write it down person or not, write it down. Then speak it to somebody. Speak it to 3 people after you've spoken it to 1. Notice what you keep saying. So from a writing perspective, my writing partner and I call it the engine room. It's like the engine room of your story. It's the same concept. What do you keep saying? And then ask, what's the doing? What's the first thing I can do? What's the first action I feel compelled to take now that I've spoken life into this thing I've been tracking for a while? I'm a very process-oriented human being, but that's where I go. And eventually it becomes a to-do list. But in these beginning days, it's tracking, naming, speaking, and then acting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it.
You.
I love it. I love it. So I love the internal voice, being aware of or noticing the internal voice and those repetitive kind of behaviors that you have when you're doing mundane things, if you will. You use the term notice, and I smirked when you said that, because the first step to anything is awareness, and which is the same, right? You're noticing, you're being aware of reoccurring thoughts, you're starting to be aware of something that needs to change, whether it's self-growth, creating a business plan, creating an online plan, a meditation practice, eating healthier, cutting back on drinking, whatever it is, there needs to be an awareness of that. And so this is how I operate. Once I have an awareness, step 1 then is courage to face that awareness. So I have to sometimes pull from inward, from what I call residual courage, which I've talked about in the past. Reassessing or reacquainting myself with other past courageous moments that I've experienced in myself, that perhaps remind me that I have the ability to do X. And ultimately, though, it is about getting clear on what it is you want. This is your greatest asset and also your greatest inhibitor. So in other words, the hamster wheels start firing, and you said brilliantly, speaking it out. And whether it's speaking it out or writing it out, and that's why journaling is so powerful, getting it out from the noggin down on some tangible concept starts to give it life. It starts to let it kind of have a pulse, and then you take that pulse, and then you start to create the skeletal nature of it by saying, okay, we call it at Leap Zone, we call it pre-paving. People call it steering, or just writing and getting detailed about, okay, this is what I see for myself. This is what I envision this online program being. This is what I envision my fitness wellness component regimen to be like. And getting very clear, just like the acting analogy, right? Getting very clear, start to create all the facets of why you would wear this clothes, this type of gait, these type of mannerisms, these inflections. You start to create this backstory, so you get clear on what it is you want. And then, super important, I believe, is you add the emotional anchors in there. How does it make you feel? because you and I know that when shit goes from here down into that heart, into that anchored, into that heart-based approach, that's when manifestation, visualization has so much more potential and impact. So how does it make you feel when you've achieved X? You know, running a 10K when you've never run anything in your life, how would you feel in that moment? You know, knowing that you've gained the confidence. And so that's kind of how I would suggest for anybody that wants to move forward on anything. And then once you're clear on that, of course, there's a strategical component, right? You need to break it, like we talked earlier, incrementalism. But I'm gonna end that loop of conversation with 4 C's. This is what I do, and I know you've heard this, Tio, but you know, courage, commitment, consistency, and you could arguably say most important is contribution. So what are you also doing for others in that quest, right? If you're running a 10K, what is the contribution to your circles of your SCOIs, or centers of influence, if you will, to inspire them or to show your kids, you know, like what is that contribution? And being of service or contributing is the way. And with, you know, that is kind of the key ingredient, in my opinion. This world needs contribution now more than ever. And I guess tying it back, T, to what we were talking about, this is the time where everyone has a free fucking pass to say, hey, I'm going to put myself first, meaning self-love, right? This is the time. Utilize it, right? You're still being of contribution by making yourself a better person, right?
Which goes back to my thing about prepare too, right? It's like a chance to kind of get whole again, or honor or respect who we are in the world, so that we're ready when the doors open, right?
Yeah.
When the doors open and we're out again.
Yeah. When you pick yourself up off the arena floor in a month, in 2 months, whenever the dust settles,
yeah,
right? When you pick yourself up and walk forward and walk out of that arena, you better be a goddamn better person than you are right now. That's my opinion. And whatever facet that means to you, but find out what that is. I feel strongly about that.
I hear that. I feel that. It's like, kind of like, right.
I mean, I can be intense. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm passionate. I feel like, you know, like, anyway.
I think that's a great, so just a thing about the word anyway, this doesn't come from me. I anyway stuff away all the time. Anyways, anyway is one of those, is actually a clue of we may have just been on something that was exposing. And and when we anyway, we're like, oh, maybe I should just pull that back. I'm not saying that you do that. I'm not saying that you do that at all.
Well, I was. You nailed it. Of course I was. You're absolutely right. 100%.
Okay, I'll take that. All right.
Well done.
I wanted to go back to something that you know, there's things that we innately do that we assume other people know how to do because we do them. And I listened to that beautiful podcast of you, the really, it's a long one and it's totally worthy of listening to the whole piece. Who were the guys you were in the podcast with?
Yeah, the Obstacle Course, John and Andrew. Yeah, the Obstacle Course podcast. Yep.
And you dropped this like tool. I'm like, shit, that is a game changer. And it was the tool of your courage journal. Oh my God. Like, it made me think, again, we are very skilled, and I think we can trust our knowledge of being. We can trust our knowledge of gratitude. There's been a zillion gratitude journals, and yes, do the gratitude journal. But when you dropped courage journal, I was like, shit, I need a courage journal. I need, and I think I'm someone who lives on the edge of my impact daily. And yet I'm a chronic second guesser, chronic second guesser. And I'm up against it all the time. And in some ways it's my gifting, because I don't trust here. I trust here, which is why I second guess. But when it's on the unhealthy side, it's actually my undoing. And your courage journal, I was like, let's assign that to everyone listening. And can you explain it again? Because it was
Sure.
so clear and simple.
Well, thank you first for that feedback. It's funny, I have gotten a lot of messages and a lot of inquiries about this process, and it's just something that I did for myself, and during my self-growth phase, which was really been mostly, it's never-ending journey, but mostly the last 5 years. I know, it's life. The last 5 years or so, I started to want, I wanted to reacquaint myself, because I knew that I was going in uncharted territories. And while sports and rowing has given me a huge wealth of confidence and swagger about the unknown and how to face the unknown, I knew I was going in uncharted territory. And so I just said to myself, you know what I want to do is I want to start a journal. And when I write in it, I want to just reflect any moments from my past that I just happened to download, and just journal about them, but courageous moments. Whenever it was, I exuded some sort of courage. And it was really interesting, because I found myself, sometimes I'd write 2 or 3 pages in one sitting. Sometimes it would just be a short kind of little blurb, but I found myself going through my life. And it's really interesting, because you forget how a lot of things are tucked away. And when you start opening doors, well, those doors then subconsciously open other doors and memories, and you start to go down this journey. And so I started to amass courageous times, from obviously rowing triumphs and asthmatic triumphs, and my first public speaking event in New York City for the American Lung Association, and going to see kids in hospitals with all my medals, and doing a one-man show, but it went from the first time I struck out in Little League, but I actually swung, because I never would swing when I was 7 years old. I would just stand there and wait for the balls to come in. And you start to relive these moments. And then, I filled up the book, and then I brought into a practice of going into 2 to 3 times a week. I would just go and flip some pages and just read an excerpt, whatever excerpt it was, and that was almost 4 years of kind of 3.5 years of kind of acquiring those excerpts, if you will.
Yeah.
And so this is where I talked earlier about residual confidence. So it made me understand that everyone has residual confidence. Not everyone's rowed. Not everyone's been on stage in New York City. However, there's people have done things that were proud of and didn't think that they could. Right. And they persevered. So I started to utilize that with some of the clients and the work that I do, in terms of because coaching business owners, and you're open and public. A lot of people still are kind of intimidated by speaking, by doing Facebook Lives, by getting out there. And so this has come in really handy for them, to kind of help them on that journey. And so perhaps for people at home right now, because courage is needed more than ever now. And before you can relive some courageous things that you, your family members, your loved ones exhibited, the more it'll remind you of the human spirit, and that fear belongs in the back seat, and it should be a voice that that is there, but it's in the background. It should never take front and center stage.
And I think the other piece, and I know we know this, and I think other people know this too, but it's the neuroplasticity piece, right? It's like you're actually creating a neural pathway that is a reminder. I often think of neuroplasticity like a gutter ball, like when you throw the ball and you're bowling and it hits the gutter and you just can't get it out.
I never had that problem, but.
Oh yeah.
No, okay.
You don't, Jim. You like strike out every time. He gets us there. Okay, well, I suck. Let's just say that. But from a neuroplasticity way, I suck in the best way, because when I get a gutter ball, the idea of neural pathways is where our brain hits, goes into the gutter, and the gutter ball, we can't get it out. But what if that gutter is the gutter of courage? Like, what if we've spent so much time in this someday time, and everyone watching, that they start a courage journal, and before they go to bed, they write down 3 things that they've been courageous about in their lifetime, right? And they leave this stage when the doors open and we all go out, they actually we all walk out, as you said, better people, because we're more courageous.
Love it. Love it.
Wow.
Mic drop. Well, that's it. And Adler psychology, that's the cornerstone of that psychology. That opposite of Freud is that courage is the fundamental component. That if you want to change anything, it takes courage first and foremost. And so, yeah, could you imagine if everybody came out of this with a little bit more courage, with who they are to walk their footsteps, and step more towards their authentic selves? It's powerful, super powerful.
And I think, and from my lens, to walk more fully as their authentic self, and walk more fully toward or as the work they're built to do in the world, which I think takes us to the third piece, because as a writer, I think in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Sorry. So
no, it's all good.
Should never apologize for my genius, should I?
No.
So Act 1 was Cornerstone, right? We totally unpacked what that is. The noticing and the tracking and the naming and the honoring. And then Act 2 is Courage, right? And so just for you story geeks out there, Act 1 is always about what we know and what we know we don't know. Act 2 is always about, oh my God, the land of the unknown. Oh my God, I'm unknown, I'm not unknown. And then Act 3, I think, is where we talked about potentially going with this conversation, if it wanted to take us here, which is around impact. Like, what do we do with this courage? In this someday time, we've got a cornerstone, we're going to be courageous. And then what's the impact that this courage might be about? And so Act 3 is the new known of every story.
Love it. I'm writing this down.
It's getting hot in here. I'm in my sunroom. I'm just going to open a window. It might just be me. I could be hot, but it could also just be.
She's burning up, ladies and gentlemen. She's going to implode.
There we go.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think this is great. So in following that storyline, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, how can we wrap this up in a nice, is prologue the correct term, Miss Storyteller?
Epilogue, sir.
Epilogue, sorry. Oh, prologue is, epilogue, you're right. There we go. All right. So how can we leave and impact people that are watching this, and hopefully that will share this with their tribe? What can we leave them as a good epilogue moving forward?
Okay, from my lens, I would say, number 1, remember that you've been entrusted with something powerful, beautiful, and impactful. You've been entrusted with it. You came into the world as a story, with a story, and your invitation and assignment is to go live it. So there's already impact in your very DNA of your own narrative. So I would say, number one, trust that. Listen for it.
Love it.
And grow the practice to an athlete, or as an actor, previous actor, the practice, the rehearsal, to grow the practice of courage, and keep your eye and your knowing on the sense of what that impact would be. And my only caveat to that is sometimes the impact that we know is often less than the impact that we're actually going to make. And to let that be so, to let yourself be surprised by the magnitude of why you're here.
Yeah, very well said. Amazing. And well, first off, Tina, thank you for your time, and thank you for kicking this off with me as the kind of inaugural Reconnect Inward conversations and courage. So thank you, and for all of you that have stood with us on this conversation. I trust that there were some things in here that hopefully sparked you, made you pause. We know that this is the time for reflection and time, and we're going to bring it back to time. This is the time for reflection. This is the time to implement action. Get clear on what it is. Each of you, I believe, has a duty to step into your role, whatever role that is, on the multifaceted playing field of life. What is that? Get clear on that. Now you have the God-given gift of time for once, and you have to respect that time and utilize that time for a contribution to your family members, to yourself, to your community, to the stream of consciousness at large. So I feel very privileged to be in this position during this time of crisis, to be in partnerships with people like Tina and some of the other guests that you'll see on this. I'm very privileged and blessed to have a client roster of people that need to hear what others and myself have to share to the world, and help people get through this. And not just help people get through it, because that's not the goal. It's helping people get through it to step into something greater than where they are today. And so I hope you'll join us on this journey. Obviously, Tina, for you, in the show notes, we'll have ways for people to contact you and all that appropriate links and stuff. And same thing for myself. And, thanks for joining us on this conversation in courage. And we hope that you are courageous and moving forward in whatever steps you take at home or wherever you're watching us. So thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Jim.
And bad love to the courageous, right?
Mad love to the courageous.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, everybody.